Welcome to Business Cycles. I'll be taking you through the phase of business cycles today. It is important that we understand the business cycles. How should we define it? As we can look at our graph here, how it is moving. As you can see it moving, those trees, look at those trees, look at the sun. You can even look here at your GDP. So it's one of those things which we really need to look into. So first of all, we need to define what is a business cycle. It is important to define, or rather, if I could say, to know the definitions in economics about what to define. So I talk about successful periods here of growth, and I also talk about the decline. Yes, when it declines, also is success. So in this category, we need to understand that there are certain activities which makes us to grow and which makes us not to grow. We can talk about the issues of exports. We can talk about the issues of imports. Exports are going to assist us in the periods of growth if we have more. And if we would have more imports, there's something wrong in our economic there. There's something wrong in we cannot have more of these imports. But it's better for us to have more exports. That means there's more domestic production which is done in a given period of time. Also, the other issues which can affect the growth is the issue of the exchange rate. We need to consider that when we talk about the issues of growth and decline. So in general, this is our diagram, our business cycle diagram. So if you could look at this diagram, right, it's too simplified, it's easy. Let's cut it into half, right? I'm going to cut it there. Good. Now, we've cut this diagram. Let's find another color again. Okay, let me put this. I want to cut this diagram again with my yellow. Good. Now, have we noticed what we have? We have the rate and we have the yen. What is there and what is there? Now, look at the issues of this area. It is what is called the contraction. Things are getting tough here. Alright? If we would look at this particular area, this is also this same area, which is called the expansion. Remember, these are the two periods in economics. You have the contraction and the expansion. So, looking at the whole diagram, we are wasting much of time. So, let's look at this. So, we have the recovery, we have the prosperity, we have the boom and the peak, which is under the expansion. Things are expanding. Now, when we look at our contraction, we have the recession, we have the depression and the trough. In the contraction, things are a little bit tense, things are a little bit tough. That simply means that we usually have high interest rates, right, in the contraction. And then why do we have the expansion? Basically, we have the issues of low interest rate, which is actually taking place. So we are going to talk about this diagram phase by phase, so that we allude more information about this. So when they ask you to draw your diagram, this is how you must draw your diagram. Remember, this is your trend line. It's not a 45 line degree. Some of you could draw like that. So look how your diagram it is, and look what do we have here on the horizontal line. You have your time, or your years, or your month, and then here what we have the economic activities. That's what we have, index of economic activities in this particular area. So let's see. So we're going to talk about the features of business cycles. This is what basically we are going to talk about. So before we talk there, let's just look at some of the causes of growth and decline in economic activity, so that we are at a greater or same page. So the causes of growth, we have high real wages, right there. We have tax cuts, there's devaluation, there's government spending, there's lower interest rate. We also have the issue of supply side, improved technology, increased labor force, discovery of raw materials, labor productivity, investment. So these are the supply side when we look into details as time also goes on. So why do we have recession? Prices, they start falling, right? Prices of houses. People are losing confidence in terms of their government. Credit crunch, Banks need to be careful. Oil prices are going up. The interest rates are just too high. So investors now start running away. So these are some of the causes of growth and decline in terms of the economic activities. Basically, they will be explained more when we are talking about the international reasons for trade, or when we talk about economic growth in the next chapter to follow. So basically, we have what we call, as we identified from the diagram, what we call recovery. When you go to the hospital, you are given medication, you are given whatsoever. You don't just get that pill and tomorrow you are okay, tomorrow 100%. No. Analyze this cartoon very well. They just say here, just remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So what I simply say that when we recover, you don't sprint. It takes slow. That's why people in marathon take hours running, maybe for almost like it depends 80 kilometers or 40 kilometers, so that they finish the particular journey. So let's look into this first one. Let's say what we have. Number one. So we have the recovery phase. So in this recovery phase, we're saying it's a process of reallocating resources, workers from failed businesses. Remember, they failed, right? They have failed, these guys. Why did they fail? It's because they were having high interest rate there. So because of those high interest rates, it made them to close their businesses. Now they to retrench some of these aspects, So new jobs will be created eventually, but not at a high pace, because we need to understand where the economy is going. An economic recovery can be thought of as a healing process, as I explained to you earlier, to the body used by breaking down and reusing dead and damaged tissues. It takes time to heal. It takes time for a wound to be saved. So in this particular recovery phase, now people, they've gained confidence, right? Why are they gaining confidence in this particular case? Businesses are opening. The rand is gaining. The rand is gaining value. So therefore, people will start demanding for goods and services. It's not only about the rand gaining value. It's also people now have jobs, right? People now have jobs. So when they have jobs, people start demanding more goods and services. So also, it increase into the production area. Why is it production is being increased? Because now people are reopening their businesses. People are starting new businesses, and that will lead to eventually job creation. And if there's job creation, this will eventually lead to what we call greater demand for goods and services. Remember, if you are not working, it is difficult for you to demand more goods and services. It is quite difficult, to be honest. But if you have means, you are working, you can able to buy more goods and services. But if you are retrenched, you are in the process of getting your UIF, you limit your spending so that you save for the future. So businesses' confidence rises. Why is it rising? Because more investors are coming. So when more investors are coming, so business will start now producing more. So when they produce more, people also come and buy more. Also, the government now can also provide skills, can provide subsidy, so that these guys will be able to be okay. So there is increased economic activity. All right? We are simply saying now people are working. People are going to work. The transport industry, the mining sector, the primary, the secondary, the tertiary, all these other aspects, these economic activities are increasing. All right? When they increase, which means now it enters into a period what we call a prosperity period, which is, I think, is our next item to discuss. Now, you are able now to eat on your own. You are able to do a lot of things on your own. Remember, we said recovery. It is a healing process. You are able to recover from your own sicknesses. Now our economic is recovering. We are nursing the wound. So by nursing this wound, it gives us into a better stage. Like you always say that South Africa is in a recession. Remember, people don't understand what is a recession. We'll talk about that later on. So we look at this recovery phase. How can we identify that we enter into recovery phase? There's what we call leading indicators, which we'll talk at the end of this. So leading indicators can be such as the stock market, right, which often rises ahead of economic recovery. If we would see these aspects taking place, then eventually we are actually saying our economic, it is going to enter into a prosperity, it's going to enter into recession. All those items need to be looked into. Like we find out that jobs advertising space, if we have more jobs, right? We are having more jobs which are being advertised. That simply tells us that we are recovering. We can talk about the issues of business competence, which we mentioned here earlier. It is also a parting of a leading indicator that we are going to recover. We are going to be much better than before. So we have to look at the other hand. Employment is typically somewhat of what we call a lagging indicator. So when we talk about a lagging indicator, we're talking about something that we talk about indicators that do not change direction until after the business cycle has changed its own direction. Like basically the issue of unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is also an example of a leading indicator, lagging indicator. So unemployment often remains high as even the economy begins to recover. When you are recovering, it does not necessarily mean that everything should just say boom. No. Unemployment will remain what? Unemployment will remain high. That means if you are sick, you'll be still sick, but bit by bit you are recovering. Because many players will not hire. It is not visible for you to quickly hire people when in the recovery phase, because it's going to be a loss to you. So as production goes, as production is increasing, as people demand more goods and services, then in the prosperity, we can start talking about something, about hiring these goods, the labor into this particular item. Because if you hire them now, who's going to pay? So we need to understand that, as I mentioned earlier, that when we talk about recovery, we need to understand that it starts with low interest rates and continues with an increase in demand and employment. Then we have the economic expansion. So during an economic recovery, the decline slow and then turn into increase. So things are a little bit tensy, but as time goes on, things will start relaxing. This is basically about our recovery phase. So decreasing unemployment rate, right, leads to an increase in consumer confidence and spending, and the economy begins to expanding again. So at this unemployment, it has to be solved. We need to solve this, because if we are not going to solve this, then there is no this competence with these people or yourself. You won't be able to spend more in this particular aspect. Oh, that's a nice guy, you know. This is how I am currently. Maybe because I'm still in the private sector, you know, I don't know. So, I'm now working, alright? I'm now working from the recovery phase. This is how I was in the recovery phase. But now I'm going to the expansion phase, right? Oh, that's quite a nice body. Yes, let's look into this expansion phase. So expansion phase of a business cycle is when the economy moves from a trough to peak. When we talk about trough, this is a bad situation, isn't it? The inflection here can be more than 100% here. Or inflation can be more than 100%. So if the government policies do not work, the physical and monetary policies might be employed, if they don't work properly, we have problem. So this expansion, we are saying that from a trough to a peak. So which means we are moving from a hole into a mountain. We are moving from down of the mountain to the top of the mountain. So focusing on interest rates, capital expenditure can help investors to determine where we are in the business. So the more we have these investors, the more we spend on the capital, then it tells us something. I was listening to the governor when he decided to keep the interest rate where it is. And that's to attract more investors. To simply say that we need to grow our economy. We need to grow the country. The country has to be at a better stage. An economic boom is expansion. We have what we call a boom, as we indicated from that diagram. Alright? And peak phases as well of the business cycles. So usually they are known as the issues of upswing, upturn, the growth period, Because if you are at peak, ladies and gentlemen, that means we are talking about maybe, remember that the current inflation target rate in South Africa is between 3 to 6. That simply means maybe our inflation is at 3 point something. So if it is at 3 point something, that means currently the bread, it is at 15 rand, right? So if it is 15 rand, this bread, it can actually go down, right? Maybe we can be buying this bread at basically 7 rand. Quite interesting, isn't it? So during a boom, we are saying key economic indicators, they will rise. We are talking about your gross domestic product. This one, remember, it measures the economic output, right? So once the gross domestic product increases, that means our productivity will increase. Why is it increasing? Because we are having more people who are working, who are employed. That means SARS is happy, isn't it? There's more revenue to the government. So business services, they'll start also to increase, right? And they're gaining what? Profits. As a result, business and famine, they receive income. And from that income, what do? They spend. Remember, let us see is consumption. So, because in the expansion phase, we're excited. What do entrepreneurs do? They start borrowing money. Why should they borrow money? They want to buy the equipment. So when they buy this equipment, ladies and gentlemen, they want to invest. They want to be at a better phase. They want to earn these profits here, as it is everyone wish to have profits earned. Employment levels rises in this particular category, and this gives rise to salaries, wages. Obviously, if your salary is increased, you spend. You're going to spend more. But remember, if you don't have, you cannot spend. And if you cannot spend, we will talk about the issues of trough. So the peak eventually comes up. Sharp demand leads to cost of goods to a little bit sour. Suddenly economic indicators stop growing. When you're at peak, if government is not careful about the policies which they use, because the business are not careful at that particular, when we are going to fall, we'll fall very nice. So it is important to be careful if you are in the peak. There's a large amount of money circulation at this time. Now, if there's this large amount of money in circulation, inflation is up. So that's what they're saying here, it leads to what? Inflation. If we looked at when most countries, when they were on lockdown, the inflation was steady. Why? There was less money circulating. So now, if there is this inflation, then this might lead for us to have a recession. So it is important to make decisions which are right if we are in the peak. The prosperity phase, ladies and gentlemen, it is characterized by input, employment, investment, profits, sales, aggregate demand, bank credit, wholesaler and retail, and etc. And the standard of living. In the prosperity phase, you need to show that you're back at work. So your standard of living needs to be quite better, isn't it? Right, go and get a loan from the bank. But always consider the interest there. Always consider that. when you ask for this. And the banks as well, they should be careful when they are giving out these particular loans. So this is the expansion phase for us. People always talk about that, may we please have a recess, may we please take a break. So in the recession phase, it's a quite interesting a part of this. So we are saying that the recession is a stage that follows the peak phase. It's not a nice state because you're falling down. Like if we look at this diagram, you're moving from your mountain here. You're going down here. You're going down. It's not nice to be in this. Why is it not nice? The demand of goods and services in this particular stage start declining. And if the demand of goods and services start declining, there's something wrong. That means the rand will lose value. People are being retrenched. It's quite a tough phase. Producers do not notice. They don't. They don't notice that people are no longer buying. They only notice when it's too late, when they've made a loss. Now, once they produce those goods, it will create an excess supply in the market. That means there are more goods than what is being demanded. Now here prices, they start to fall, ladies and gentlemen. Inflation hits up. So all positive economic indicators such as your income, which is the major reason for you to spend, your output, your wages, they start going down. Yes, it was nice that you were given an increment in the expansion phase, but in the recession, everything's going down because we did not make the right choices. So, in the recession phase, where there's a negative economic growth, remember, for us to have a recession, we need to have two, ladies and gentlemen. It is very important. The recession does not only occur in one quarter. We need to have two consecutive quarters for the recession to occur. It is introduced by a decrease in profits of businesses. Why is it so? Inflation is high. Prices are going above the inflation target, which is between 3 to 6%. There's decrease in production. When there's decrease in production, then also there's drop in employment. Yes. If people are no longer buying goods and services, we start retrenching. So unemployment increases. And now you start feeling of pessimism, It's one of those things which we have to consider if we are working, saving money. It is important that if we reach to these stages of recession phase, the trough, we are able to sustain ourselves. So there is a decrease in economic activities. That means we are simply saying that now our GDP, gross domestic product, is decreasing. And the economic now is what? Slowing down. We have the issue of what we call the depression phase. It's a famous word these days. I'm being depressed. My parents, they depress me, my brother, my sister, my wife, my husband. It's all those aspects. But what have we done as a society to avoid depression? So when we look at this depression phase, I think now we are familiar. There are a lot of things which can depress us in our lives. So, this is what we call contraction. There's contraction. It's quite confusing. You are weak. You can't do anything if you are depressed. So that means you cannot go to work, right? So no one can hire you. So we are removing people. We are retrenching. Why are we retrenching? We want to make sure that we reduce the expenses. We'll hire you again when you are recovering. So it is important that in a depression phase, crime will increase. And that hits the economic more hard. It is not a nice phase, but you have to understand that the economy cannot always be good. Even USA, Cuba, all these big countries, they also have some challenges which they face. They can enter into recovery, they can enter into prosperity. They can go to recession and go back to peak, But it depends how the government put the policies. So we have the issues of trough. So this is a transition from the contraction phase to the expansion. So if you are depressed, we'll find people for you to do the job, give you counseling, all those aspects. So you remove from your depression, become a better person. So in this trough, we find trough at the bottom. It's in a valley. If you look at our diagram, remember, it's something like this. Here, in this particular area, we eventually find our trough. It's not nice down there. It is cold. It's hectic. So during a depression, money is short in supply. Now, if there's no money, then you cannot spend. Not going to spend. Usually when there's short in supply, usually in depression as well, we can talk about the issue of hyperinflation. Talk about the issue of stagflation. They can also take place in this particular depression phase. There's black market which is being introduced today. The rand has lost the value like no bad business. And investors have lost confidence, business have lost confidence. So economic here, that is lowest. So trough is the lowest point. It's the lowest point, and peak is the highest point in the business cycles. If you're at your lowest mood, you can't do anything, cannot make a decision. So there's negative impact on investment and spending. People don't want to spend. So if people don't spend, if there's this negative impact, so that simply means the multiplier is where it is what? It is affected in this particular category. Retrenchment occurs. Inflation, it is high. There is short in money supply. We do not have investors. Businesses are closing. All these aspects takes place in the depression phase. Cost of production, it decreases. Or it can increase. In a sense of things are expensive. Where are you going to buy? Where are you going to buy those aspects? So it is important for one to relate these phases it is important for you to distinguish or to differentiate depression, recovery. It is important to differentiate contraction and expansion phase. So these are some of the type of the questions you can able to discuss. But we'll put more of these on the website. I think you're aware of the website, www.mashhost.org.za, or you can visit our Facebook page, Mash Host Economist. You'll find as well these videos there for you. So, in conclusive, there is extensive depletion of national income. Like, obvious. Where would the government get money if businesses are closing, if people are not working? So if people are not working, we're talking about here that there is no income for the government. Remember, we must pay what? Tax. We cannot pay tax because we are not working. So to government as well, their expenditure need to become a little bit tougher for them. So now they need also to bring tough decisions. So during this time as well, we can talk about that. We'll have more imports. More imports here can take place in this particular phase. That means there's less exports because we cannot produce more goods and services. To those who want us to set you the exams, to mark for you, even printing, we do that. We provide benchmark exams. So setting of exam, these are the prices for you. Yes, we will deliver the scripts. We will come and get the scripts at your school. It's not a big deal for us to mark them for you, to be able to analyze how important you are. Even individual, if you need us to set you a paper, you can just send us your information. We don't copy questions from past papers. We create questions which are related from your CAPS document, from your prescribed textbooks. That is usually university prescribed textbooks. So in the next unit, we will be looking at the explanation for business cycles. That is the explanation of endogenous and exogenous. I'm seeing we have a lot of questions there.